Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokémon Emerald video. Today I will be playing through the game with Granbull. It is a somewhat forgotten Pokémon from Generation 2. Personally I find him kinda ugly and that's one of the reasons why I never used it. It is also a generic normal type physical attacker, so since there are a lot of those, there are better things to choose. Apparently I am not the only one with that opinion, since Game Freak did not show it any love until Generation 6, when they changed his type to Fairy, making him a bit better. For the rules, I can only use my starter in combat, I can't use items from my bag in battle, I can't raise my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. The one good thing that normal physical attackers have is that they have stab on tackle and other normal moves. Because of that, the few fights in the early game are usually very easy, as I have a lot more damage than what I am supposed to. As far as stats go, Granbull is not great. The only notable thing is his decently high attack at 120. I did not get many IVs in attack, so that will be a bit annoying later on maybe, but I'm sure it will be fine. Like many other normal types, Granbull has a lot of special moves, but cannot really take advantage of those since his special attack is very low. There is still a chance that I will use some of them, like for example Bite, that Granbull learns through level up. It's not going to do all that much damage, but considering that my only other option for Roxanne is a resisted tackle, I think I will go with Bite. Also, along the way I learned Charm, which is a pretty interesting move, as it sharply lowers the enemy attack. I used it a few times against Nosepass, as I was expecting the fight against it to go on for quite a bit. That helped me out a great deal, as her only attacking moves are physical. Thanks to that, the only thing I have to worry about are crits, but those do not happen too often, so I am fine defeating the stone guy. After obtaining the first badge, we have to do some side quest stuff, and before leaving town, we can take on the optional fight against May. Her team is a bit stronger now, but her starter does not have a super effective move yet, so I can defeat both of them with a couple of tackles. The next gym should be Brawly, but given my moveset and typing, I thought it would be best to skip it for now. Instead, I have to take on the two Team Aqua Grunts harassing this guy in Slateport. Their teams are not very strong, the only annoying thing is that all of my attacks make contact, so I will take some damage from Rough Skin. Although, to be honest, it seems like I am taking less damage than usual from that ability, but maybe that's just me. Once we took care of that problem, we can fight some more trainers around town, and then we have to face the next fight against our rival May. Her team now is kinda scary, especially because her starter Combusken has double kick that hurts quite a bit. Thanks to my decent attack, I can defeat it in 2 hits, and so I do not have to get kicked many times. That also allows me to clear May kinda easily, and so we can move on to the next gym. I lost once against Wattson because I got very unlucky. I got crit twice by Shockwave from Manectric back to back, and even though it was close, I could not pull it off. Also, you might have noticed that I got a flamethrower. Assuming that I do not get crit many times again, the main problem is going to be Magneton. All of my other moves are resisted, but with one flamethrower I can take care of the magnet and solve a lot of problems. In the second attempt, RNG is slightly more in my favor and I do not get crit by Manectric, leading to another easy win. With this badge too, we can now use Rock Smash out of combat, and that eventually brings us to Meteorfall Caves. Here we meet the two teams and are informed about Max's plan. To stop him, we have to climb the local volcano and challenge him to a duel. Since I am a physical attacker, the Intimidate from my Tiena is going to be very annoying throughout the rest of the run. Fortunately, at least for now, that was not a problem. I got a couple of nice crits and my decent base attack was enough to carry me through this match. From here we can get down and then take on the next gym. Flannery is a bit scary, mostly because she can do a lot of damage with her fire moves, and I do not have anything super effective on her. Once again, my base attack here saves me quite a lot of trouble, because even though Torkoal is very tanky, I can defeat it in 2 hits, and that allows me to defeat it before the damage output becomes a problem. Now that we have this badge too, the only thing we have left to do is backtrack and take care of Brawly that we skipped earlier. As you might expect, this fight was not exactly very challenging. My level is almost triple his, so all of my moves are obviously going to be a one-shot. Maybe I could have defeated him earlier, since he does not appear to be too hard, but I preferred to be safe than sorry. Once we have obtained his badge too, we only have to backtrack a little bit more to find the next challenge against our dad. I was not sure whether Norman would be hard or not. His team can do quite a bit of damage and is sort of tanky, but since Slacking goes for the counter strategy, his strongest Pokémon is Null and Void, and so this gym challenge ends up being not very challenging either. As a reward, we are given the Surf HM, and thanks to that, we can explore pretty much the rest of the region. Eventually we stumble upon the Weather Institute, where we find Shelly holding some guys hostages. We challenge her for their freedom, and of course, since she is only a Team Aqua Admiral, the fight against her ends up being a nothing burger. A couple of steps later, we are challenged by our rival May, and this fight is slightly more challenging than the last. Her team lasts a bit longer, but that is mostly because they are very good at wasting time. Between Protect and Fake Out, they can pretty much double the amount of turns needed to take them down. Once we have took care of our rival too, we can explore a bit more and take on the next gym leader. Winona uses flying types, and today that is not going to be exactly a problem. The only thing that would normally pose a threat is Skarmory, since I cannot do that much to that steel bird, but since I still have a flamethrower, I can use that move to easily defeat it and make this gym quite easy too. I have to say, I am sort of impressed with the Granbull so far. It has been doing a lot better than I was expecting. Anyway, our next stop is going to be in the next town, where we can face May for the last time. The main reason for doing this fight against her is that she is blocking access to Substitute, and I'm sure I will be using that move in the Elite Four since it helps out a great deal, especially if you are a physical attacker. There is not a whole lot to say about her team, it is very similar to our previous encounter, and so after a couple of attacks they all go down. Next we can go in the pet cemetery and get the magma emblem from the old lady on top. This key item lets us enter the cave where Groudon resides. The place is flooded with Team Magma grants, but after clearing all of them, we can finally reach the core, where we have to fight against Maxi again. This time around, the fight against him does not go all that well for me. Since there are no crits, I get slowed down by my Tiena, which is not the end of the world, but that leads Crobat to confuse me. And of course, since I am a physical attacker, I end up hitting myself a lot of times. That also allows Crobat to attack me a ton. And between those two things, my HP gets dangerously low. Add an earthquake from Camerapt, and I almost end up being defeated. After that not so great performance, we have to infiltrate the Team Aqua base and take down the other Admiral. Fortunately, this fight is a lot easier, but I accidentally overwrote Secret Power with Crunch. That is not very good, as I do not have any physical attack now, well, other than Shadow Ball. That would usually be very bad, but fortunately the next gym fight is going to be against Tate and Liza, where normal moves are not great, and Shadow Ball is going to perform a lot better. Also, in a little bit I can get Return, which is a much better stab move, so that's not too bad. TNL were not too problematic. Shadow Ball, since it is physical and super effective, is more than enough to get the one-shot on all of their Pokémons. It would have been interesting to give them a Girafarig so that you could not just spam it, and there is even a guy in the gym with that Pokémon. Anyway, once we have acquired their badge, we can go help Steven with his fight against the Team Magma leadership. Here is probably where Return could have been very useful, as I can just spam that move on their Pokémons. Instead, now I am stuck either using special moves or resisted moves, and I have to be careful not to Thunderbolt a Camerapt. So I made this fight accidentally more complicated than what it needed to be. The one good thing is that I got Swaggered, and since I did not hit myself too many times, I can take advantage of the increased attack. Shadow Ball is not great against my Tiena since it is resisted, but it is neutral against everything else, so instead of Return I can use that to clear their Pokémons. It did take a while, but eventually I am able to defeat the remaining Pokémons on their teams, in no small part thanks to the help that Steven is able to provide. It's kinda funny how sometimes Steven is not going to do anything, and sometimes he destroys their teams. Once we have taught Maxi and his goons a lesson, we are given the Dive Gem and can use it to reach the seafloor cave. Here we are met by Archie, who is about to wake up Kyogre. To try to stop him, we challenge him to a duel, and his team is more or less what we faced many times so far, but actually is even worse since he has nothing to resist Thunderbolt, so I can mostly spam that move to take care of his Pokémons. Once again I got confused by Crobat, but since I spent all of my bad luck against Maxi, it was much easier this time. Of course, defeating him does not stop the story, and so Kyogre gets woken up anyway. With the boot of the weather legendaries active, Hoenn becomes a mess, and we have to go ask Rayquaza for help. As I go do that, could you do me a favor and subscribe if you are not, leave a like. As I do that, could you do me a favor and subscribe if you are not, leave a like, maybe share it, and if you have anything to say, leave a comment. After Rayquaza saves the day and I finally learn Return, we can take on the last gym leader. Juan specializes in water types, and so it is usually a good benchmark to see how well you will do against Wallace. Even though I have a super effective Thunderbolt, I think Return is going to do a bit more damage. And so, just by spamming that move, I can sweep through his team without the need of even setting up. That's very good, but since Wallace is quite a bit more tanky, it might not be enough for him. Now that we have all of the badges, and so we can use all of the TMs, we can enter the Victory Road, where we are immediately challenged by Wally. His team is a bit annoying, mostly because by this point I forgot Flamethrower, so defeating Magneton might prove a bit more tedious. I got lucky and do not get paralyzed by Thunderbolt, so with a couple more returns I can defeat the only Steel type on his team, and from here the rest of them all fall to a single return. Sort of crazy how powerful Stab Return is. I always forget about it. Anyway, after exploring the rest of the Victory Road, I can get to the league, and here our first match is going to be against Sidney. Of course, as I previously mentioned, I got the substitute TM, and I immediately use it against my Tiena. That prevents a lot of annoying moves from Sidney, like confusion or slows or other stuff like that. Unfortunately, Granbull cannot learn any setup move before the league, so I am sort of stuck with the base return. Surprisingly, that may be enough to do very well in the league, mostly because of a thing that I neglected to mention throughout the run. Granbull is a part of the fast growth rate group, and that allowed me to get many levels. And since I am more overleveled, my stats are going to be higher too. For Phoebe, I adopted the now meta strategy of setting up Substitute and then throwing everything I got at her Pokémons. This time are Shadow Balls, so they do not stand a chance really. The only thing that survives is Sableye, who of course tries to be annoying with the double team strategy, but a crit teaches him a good lesson. The other thing that might survive is the last Dusclops, but the super effective factor is too much for it to handle. Once we have defeated Phoebe, we can move on to the next Elite Four, who is Glacia. She might be a bit more challenging, because if I use Substitute, I give her a turn to set up the Hail. That weather condition is going to do chip damage to me, even if I am behind the Substitute, and so for the time being I decided to not use it and instead go straight for the offensive. That works very well, and I am able to one-shot all of her Pokémons except for Walrein. It fires back with a Surf, but it does not do much damage to me, and so with a couple more returns I can take care of Glacia too. Drake is next, and other than Wallace, he might be the most challenging fight in the entire game. Since I do not have any boosting move, I can set up one substitute and go straight for the offensive. My goal is to keep the substitute alive, at least until he sends out Salamence, so that I can block his Intimidate and have more attack. He decided to send out his big dragon last, and I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. It makes it harder to keep the substitute alive, but that also means that Intimidate has less of an impact in the fight. Lastly, we finally have the fight against the champion Wallace. Against him, I was not sure when to use substitute. I could do it as usual against Wailord, but that would give him a turn to damage it, and I'm not sure if it would leave a double edge or blizzard. I was worried that Tentacruel would outspeed me and toxic me, but instead I can move first, so that was a pleasant surprise. Since Ludicolo usually does not use offensive moves, I set up the sub against him, and that was the correct decision. That also allowed me to get to Gyarados and block his Intimidate, and all of that also gave me very nice cover against Milotic, in case it used Toxic and tried to stall me. Well, turns out I was very overthinking it, because I ended up sweeping his team with just a return. Once again, the power of stab return is too much for the game to handle. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like, maybe subscribe, ring the bell, and all of that stuff. If you have any video ideas, suggestions, or anything else you want to say, leave it down in the comments. I'll be sure to read and answer all of them. And I'll see you next week. Bye!